Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Tag Me. My name is Ben, and we're going to be playing some Netrunner, as always. So I hope everyone had a great weekend, and I did. I had a good one this time. We got to watch some football. I got to play a lot of Marvel Rivals. Been playing way too much of that. But, man, I will say, we have another Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. However, I don't think a lot of you came here for football talk, so we can move right along. But if you got any predictions for who you think might win, let me know. I would love to hear it, especially after those games this weekend. They were really good. So we are going to be specifically, however, for Netrunner, to get back on topic, diving into some of the startup decks that won the World Championship in 2024, this past year in San Francisco. And I mentioned Always Be Running at one point in a different video, but I figured it would be good to kind of go through and show you, give a good example of, sorry, I had to adjust my chair there, it looked a little funny. Some good examples of ways to use this resource. I think it's really, really good. So definitely recommend checking it out and looking for some local events or just things that are happening near you. But we're gonna look up some past results here. So this is just alwaysberunning.net. We've talked about this before, so I will leave that here. And the link is also in the description if you want to take a look yourself. And we're going to results, and we're gonna format this by startup. There it is. And we are looking for the World Championship event, which was, oop, I think we passed it here. Where are we? Oh, there we are. World Championship startup event, San Francisco. Yeah, so this was the prize support for the event, which is pretty sweet. Like, this is some of the reason, like, this is an awesome Docklands pass with Zaya handing off some key bit of information to a smuggler actually doing a Docklands pass. Looks like that's some shipping containers going on in the background. Some other event prizes. A Brawn, which is a very powerful piece of ice that we saw last week a few times in HB. Just a really cool looking full art. And they do this with everything. It just looks great. Hannah Wheels, we've been playing her out of Seb, so a lot of these cards were available in the World's 2024 Championship, so pretty cool. But we're looking at deck lists, so keep scrolling, and it looks like the winner was Grendel X, and playing Personal Evolution and Mercury, so very, very different from what we had going on. And last week we were focusing a bit on Corpse, so let's take a peek and see what they were playing, what Grendel was playing on Corpse side here. So Personal Evolution. So Personal Evolution, old core set ID, whenever an agenda is scored or stolen, do a net damage. So usually this kind of indicates you're going to be playing more smaller agendas, or you want to use that as a leverage point and find a way to make the net damage either a tax on their economy, making them spend extra clicks to draw up so they don't die or prevent the flatline, or even actually go for the flatline. Just a really flexible ID, and it generally forces the runner to play much safer than they may normally, because the threat of being flatlined is very, very real out of Jinteki Personal Evolution. And with their asset suite, or excuse me, agenda suite, 3 Fuji assets. So we've been glossing over it, but Corpse side rules, they require 20, usually in a 45 to 49 card deck, it requires 20 to 21 points of agendas. And this one is doing it with 3 Fuji assets, again, kind of leaning into the net damage. And this is where it gets scary, right? Because you're trying to win the game, right? You know, your turn or 11 or 12 and you're up to 3-4 points and you're trying to make a push and you've lost a couple cards out of your hand, and then you're going to spend that card to play Maker's Eye or Legwork or something. And the threat of those extra accesses and seeing additional cards is you might see something like Fuji Asset Retrieval, which when it's scored or stolen, so anytime this is added to a score area, more or less, do 2 net damage. So that's 2 cards from hand right off the bat. And then comboed with the Jinteki Personal Evolution Identity, it's 3 net damage. And that's just off of 1 agenda. So if you are running and maybe you find like a House of Knives, which is this other little 1-pointer we'll talk about in a second, but let's say the runner finds a House of Knives, takes a net damage, finds a Fuji Asset Retrieval, takes more net damage, and that could end the game right then and there, and that's just 4 net damage just from 2 cards accessed out of HQ. So it's really scary playing against this ID. But another staple out of Personal Evolution is House of Knives. When you score this agenda, place 3 agenda counters on it, then you can spend it to do a net damage only during a run and only once per run. Which seems like it's not, on its own, it's not going to kill. I don't think that's a surprise. It's not really how the card is intended to be designed. But it is going to turn on pressure with a lot of the other cards in this deck. And I think that's a really unique purpose. In addition to being obviously worth a point for the end of the game, or to end the game, having this way to kind of leverage your biggest asset, which is the ability to kill the runner, and having that threat and turning on that threat more than the runner might feel comfortable with. So this is another one we've seen over a long time here. Longevity Serum is a limit 1 per deck. I suspect this is in the deck because it's a 3/2. Honestly, this agenda, when you score, you can trash cards from HQ and shuffle cards from archives into R&D. So this is a bit of a hand-fixing card. It lets you shuffle up. Usually you're going to shuffle agendas back in. Maybe you have a handful of them and you want to throw them back into R&D. This is a way to discard them and cycle them back into your deck, which is a very helpful ability. But a lot of the time, I feel like it's also just a blank 3/2 because you don't see a lot of 3. You don't see these numbers on agendas very much anymore. And then rounding out our suite is 3 See How They Run, which is a 4/2. When you score this agenda, you play a Psy game, which is a secret bidding thing in this game, which is super fun. If they differ, do a core damage. If they match, do a net damage. Either way on this, you kind of are ending up in a good way. The core damage reduces the runner's hand size, so again, you're pressuring that hand size, and I feel like we're going to see a lot of these other cards in this deck that really find other ways to pressure or threaten to kill the runner. So core damage is great, and a net damage is also good because it's just whittling them down slowly but surely. And again, this combines with your identity ability. So you could do a core damage and then do another net damage, and that's really strong too, making the runner lose 2 cards out of their hand when they might not expect it. So a lot of ways to threaten the cards out of the runner's hand and put pressure on them in a way to make them, not so comfortable with their game plan, which is really cool. Assets. So we have some money. Okay. Right away, I'll tell you what I see. I see money cards, which are these Charlotte and Regolith, and these are cards that we've played. We saw this out of our Wayland deck for the last couple of weeks. Really good way, even if you don't have the ID ability to get you money back, this is just a really good engine for both card draw and economy, which let you keep rolling. And again, you can also use this as a trap. So really flexible card in any deck. Of course, you'll find it right at home in Personal Evolution. Regolith Mining License, we removed this from our deck, but this Jinteki wants to play the remote game a little bit more, so they don't mind spending the clicks as much, and spending a click to gain 3 credits out of Jinteki Personal Evolution is historically really, really good, because way back in the day, you might not believe it, but we would play a card called Gilahan's or Helahan's Arcology. Just to give you an idea, this used to be how Jinteki had money back in the day. And this, you would have to score it and then spend 2 clicks to gain 3 credits. So obviously, I think this... oh, we've got lost in our sauce here. Go back. Okay, there we go. So having this ability to just spend 1 click to gain 3 credits, it makes total sense that you'll see this in a deck. And that agenda we showed you, that Helahan's Arcology, by the way, that is an agenda that was famously in Personal Evolution too. So this is something that I've been familiar with for a long time in the game, and it's cool that it's that archetype has lasted this long. So very cool to see it continue on at high levels of play at no matter what stage of the game we're in. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then Spin Doctor, this is, again, kind of a typical card for all decks. Helps you fix your hand, gets you card draw. It lets you put cards in the discard pile and then shuffle them back. And again, this is something you typically see with agendas. So if you overdraw, you have to discard at the end of your turn. And then you can discard those agendas that you might not want, clogging up your hand. And then at an instant speed, remove Spin Doctor from the game to shuffle 2 cards back in. Those 2 agendas back in. So it's pretty good. The other 2 cards that stick out of these assets, out of our 12 assets, are Snare and Urtica Cypher. And this is where we're showing that we're really leaning into some damage. And there's some other cards down here that are cool. But these are traps. Long story short, these are just tricks for the runner to find that is going to hurt them. Urtica Cypher does minimum 2 net damage if they access it while it's installed. And it can be more. Again, something that can also be bluffed as a Charlotte, or Charlotte can bluff for it. So more cards that feed into that bluffing and net damage mechanic simultaneously, and this is pretty cool. And Snare is super flexible. It's a bit expensive at 4, but it's really flexible because if the runner finds it out of R&D, so out of their deck, as well as in their hand, you have the ability to trigger Snare, which is 3 net damage and a tag. And the net damage is, like we've been talking about, threatening that hand size. And tag is another downside runners typically want to avoid. You're immediately going to threaten the resources, any resources that the runner has on the board. But it looks like this deck does have some other ways to take care of, or to take advantage of tags, and we'll talk about that if the runner does decide to just completely ignore them. For now, we're going to ignore it. It's a thing Snare does that will combo with other parts of this deck, which is probably why it won. With our operations, hedge funds, just very typical, gain money. That's not a surprise. Mindscaping is one of the ways, it was actually the biggest way, that the tags could matter. Usually, it's a module card. Mindscaping, 2 cost, Gray Ops, resolve one of the following modes. The first one, gain 4, draw 2 cards, add 1 card from HQ to the top of R&D. So it does, in effect, draw. It nets you 2 credits and a card if you use it for the first mode, but you also fix the top card of R&D, which means you don't need to worry about it so much, unless you're trying to bait the runner or trick the runner into thinking that there is an agenda there, and there really is. But usually that's just a fixing thing, and it lets you see more cards of your deck and get you a little bit of money along the way. And then the second mode is where the tags come in, where you can do X net damage, where X is equal to the number of tags up to 3. And this is a way to just get some extra little points. And if the runner suddenly hits a snare, and maybe it's their second snare, or they got a tag another way, and they don't have a way to draw back up 2 cards with 1 click, Mindscaping can threaten the kill or threaten a death, even if the runner is trying to be aware of making sure that they always have cards in hand when they run. Mindscaping lets you take advantage of if they lose that game a little bit, and you can take advantage and punish them if they don't do it as well as they should. So really cool card. It's tricky to use. This is a card that you look at it and you're like, I don't get it. The runner's always going to clear tags. 2 credits isn't a big deal. I don't understand. I've been there. It's a card that is better in a game with the threat of knowledge and play style. So definitely recommend giving this card a try if you haven't already. And then Neurospike, another way to get to our kill package. This does damage equal to the number of points that you've scored on agendas in that turn. And again, let's circle back to Fuji Asset. So remember this does damage equal to agenda points scored. So Fuji Asset is our biggest agenda in this deck. It's a 3-point agenda. So that's 3 damage if we play a Neurospike the turn we score an asset, Fuji Asset. Additionally, when we score it, it does 2 net damage because of the text on Fuji Asset. Additionally, because of our ID ability, when it's scored or stolen, we do another net damage. So if we can score the Fuji Asset Retrieval with a click left and a Neurospike in hand, we have the ability to do up to 6 net damage with between scoring it out and playing a Neurospike. The runner's maximum hand size is 5, so this is usually a pretty good opportunity to try and have us win the game. This is a line that we always want to remember. Of course, there's some counters, but this is a way that this deck really wants to play. Definitely recommend that line. And it even works with the 2-pointers. Again, with See How They Run, this could be great too, because See How They Run can also be 3 net damage, or 2 damage in and of itself, and then the Mindscaping coming in. And if the runner is not expecting that damage, maybe they just thought you were playing a Fuji Asset, or they saw a Fuji Asset or something, and they just didn't expect you to have that extra little damage. It does add up, even if the cards that you hit aren't necessarily the best. So we're going for a kill in this deck. This is important. Very different style of deck, where our Wayland deck is trying to score honestly, we would call it, albeit a bit quickly, but we're trying to just push agendas and score out in remotes. This deck is trying to flatline the runner, and I think scoring out is a secondary plan. I wouldn't suspect this is the main way that this deck is trying to get wins. And the only thing, we have a couple things left. Let's run through our upgrades here. So a Malapert, we start to find some more of this influence. When we score an agenda, we can search R&D for a non-agenda and reveal it. Kind of a tech card. This does help set up the Neurospike kills. So when we score something, so let's go back to that Fuji Asset example. Let's say we score a Fuji Asset out of the server with a Malapert, we can now suddenly go get that Neurospike immediately and follow it up with a kill, or try and follow it up with the kill. So pretty cool flex. For 3 influence, I think that's definitely a good line. Even if it doesn't or won't line up a kill, I think this is just good tech and lets you go get your Mindscaping or Hedge Fund or Ice or your Regolith or something, and pushes you forward somehow. For 1 credit, I think it's good. And the trash cost is going to make it so the runner has to think twice if they want to trash it. We also have Daniela Jorge Inacio, who is going to protect our stuff. So if they want to steal or trash this card, they need to put 2 cards from their hand to the bottom of the stack. Not net damage per se, but it's still serving the point of getting cards out of the runner's hand, which gets them closer to a flat line. So either way, if they trash it, it does its thing and it's persistent. So then they probably aren't going to be able to score or steal an agenda, because it's 4 cards out of hand plus the ID ability of another card puts them in a bit of a danger zone. So she's really good to protect our stuff. And then our last bit of influence, quite a lot of influence actually, is Angelique Garza Correa. Upgrade a bunch of stuff. Threat, she can do a meat damage, and that means once someone has 3 points, you can spend a credit and a click to discard her from your hand to do a damage. Just a good ability. Again, this can combo with our Neurospikes. Angelique is another card that we can get with Malapert if we already have a Neurospike, or if we just need an extra little bit of damage, and it's much cheaper than the Neurospike to pull off. So it's another combo piece that we can use to either ping them, or we can just install it and make it so the runner hurts and they just take net damage, and she just protects a server in another way. So really good threat not only for the board, but something that we can use to try and help set up or facilitate our kill at some point in the game. So, as we mentioned, a lot of our actual suite here is all about just trying to put the runner in a situation where they are going to be flatlined or make a wrong decision and be forced to play conservatively so that we can score out our agendas. And we'll talk about our ice here too. But this is really what the plan is with this deck. We have some Boto, just a big, beefy dolphin thing. Again, gets bigger as the game goes longer, and early game, it is a spiky net damage card. High strength, lots of subroutines, could end the run, and does damage. Does all the things this deck wants to do. Makes sense. Tattoo Bola, again, it's a gear check ice, forces the runner to get a barrier breaker, and when they do break it, we get to do a swapperoo with a piece of ice in our hand and get some money back. So it serves the econ card, or pseudo econ we'll call it. It serves as a gear check, and it lets us do some ice manipulation as the game goes, with all very, very good effects. And this is a card you also will see out of Jinteki quite a bit. Some more big ice, Atini, so our ant farm. We do a bunch of net damage. Do a net damage unless the runner pays 2. So it gives the runner a choice. Like, yes, they can pay 6 instead of take 3 net damage. But if we made the runner pay 6, I'm okay with that. It's very good. Very good effect. So that's still great. 3 net damage, also good effect. Any combination of these two things, I'll be happy with. And with threat, the runner cannot spend credits. So at the end of the game, this just forces someone to take 3 net damage unless they can break it. Good. Again, nice, good, beefy piece of ice that we want to have money to res. That's why there's only one of them. And then we have some more monsters. Oh, and I didn't talk about this one. Enigma, just a nice little gear check. Costs the runner a click if they face check into it without a breaker and ends the run. Just make the runner get a solution. Simple enough. Another big snick, really big Cloud Eater. This one is another sentry. Actually, our first sentry, I'll say. And it's an interesting piece of ice. I'll read this one again. Whenever an encounter with this ice ends, if it was rezzed this turn, trash one installed runner card unless the runner takes 2 tags or suffers 3 net damage. So the turn you res this ice, it forces the runner to resolve one of the subroutines, regardless of whether or not they break it. Not a lot of ice are guaranteed to have an effect, so this is a really unique card in that way, which is super cool. But also, it is a high strength piece of ice that has 3 really impactful subroutines. So all of these are great if they fire, and it puts us, they all help move our game plan forward. So the very first subroutine, trash 1 installed runner card. This does not have a limit. This is not an installed program. This is not an installed resource. This is not an installed piece of hardware. You can pick. That is a really strong effect in Netrunner. Most times, cards will specify one subset, one type of card that you can affect. This being able to just pick and choose whatever is the most impactful on the game, on the board state, is huge. Can't be understated enough. Second subroutine, give the runner 2 tags. On its face, doesn't sound super stressful, but again, if we combo that with our mindscaping, or just the threat of trashing more of the runner's resources, this is really strong. Or the economic effect of forcing them to remove the tags and get rid of the, take the time and spend the credits to remove the tags. That's really good. And the last one is 3 net damage. We've talked about 3 net damage a lot. 3 net damage is really good. Having it as 1 subroutine is a bit better than 3 single subroutines that each do a net damage, but that's a nuance, and either way, 3 net damage is good. So really big snake, big cloud snake in the sky, and makes sense why this would be in our deck. And rounding out this one is Phenutria. When the runner passes this ice, if there are 4 more cards in the grip, give them a tag, and then each subroutine does a net damage. So if they break it and they have a bunch of cards, again, they're pressuring the runner with a tag, pressuring the resources, pressuring the mindscaping. If they don't, great, then they're accessing with a lower amount of cards. You're accessing either the deck or our agendas, or excuse me, either our R&D, which is our deck, our HQ, which is our hand, or the agendas in a remote server, and it's going to threaten more damage. So they're accessing already at low card count when they could suffer a lot more damage during the access. So really good, really good. This is super solid. I understand it's a very different kind of deck to what we've been playing with Wayland. Obviously, we aren't advancing our ice in this deck, and its game plan is very focused on trying to flatline the runner, as opposed to, let's say, score out an agenda. And even though our Wayland deck is trying to cheat out agendas by advancing quickly with seamless launch or doing some trickery there, it's still trying to score them out. This one is doing it slowly. You're probably broadcasting to some degree that something is being advanced, and it's the runner's choice whether they want to risk it or not. And usually it's a catch-22 because we end up ahead every time. So, very different kind of build. Let's take a look at second really quick, and I'll try and go through these a bit quicker, but then we'll go through the runner side and just kind of see what the top 2 had. We saw this playing when we were playing the last couple weeks, Haas Bioroid Precision Design. An extra hand size, and when you score an agenda, you can add 1 card from Archives to HQ. Again, this is a pretty flexible ability. It lets you play in the moment and get whatever is going to be the most helpful to you. Usually, I have some guesses what that might be. We'll talk about that when we get there. But I feel like there's specific cards that we're going to see out of this one. All right. Oh, so this one looks like it's also a different deck. Anyway, and this is Luminal Transubstantiation. This is insane value on a card. This is a card that's banned in Standard now because it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous in HB decks. A 3/2, like we said, really good numbers on agenda, and you just gain a free turn. Just gain a turn when you score it. That's really good. Yeah, don't need to explain that one. Just gain an extra turn. Time warp, time walk. Do it again. Pretty good. Off-World Office, 4/2. When you score, gain 7. Just money. Really good card. Helps us keep our economy up, which is really important when we're trying to score agendas. Project Vitruvius, 3/2. If we over-advance it, we can pull a card back from Archives at instant speed. Again, this is a pretty good effect. I can definitely imagine that if you can get a Vitruvius counter on this, or 1 Vitruvius counter over the course of a game, it's going to be really good. You don't need it because your ID is already kind of this card whenever something gets scored or stolen. So Vitruvius gives you that ability to either stack your ability or just score out an easy 3/2. And as we discussed, 3/2 is always good. Rounding out our agendas is Send a Message, which is a 5/3, and when you score or steal this agenda, you can res a piece of ice, ignoring all costs, which makes sense. Historically, HB has some pretty expensive cards. So. And you'll notice that this deck is very different from the Jinteki Personal Evolution deck we just looked at, because this is also playing fewer agendas. We're back on a smaller agenda suite because the Jinteki ID wanted to damage us with steals and scores, whereas the HB identity wants to hide the agendas a bit more and probably not even give us the option, give the runner the option to score them. So a bit different of a deck concept from the start. It still has a bunch of assets, so we do have Spin Doctor, we talked about that. We have Nico Campaign, which gets money over time. If the runner ignores it, it's going to end up making Hospira a bunch of money. And we can also stick this behind some ice and protect it to help our economy go. Pretty good. We have some federal fundraising, which lets us fix our deck and forces the runner to act on our remotes. If I've been playing, I think I mentioned I've been playing a lot of Epiphany Analytica with this card, so I see how impactful this is, and being able to not only look at the top 3 of cards of your deck, but rearrange them, lets you fix your hand and keep agendas buried and make the runner need multi-access in order to actually see something out of R&D that is impactful. So with this, we always know what card is on top of our deck, and it can help get us draw and have it be the cards that we probably want, more likely than not. So really, really good card here. And again, if the runner doesn't trash this, it becomes a problem long term. And the last card that we have as an asset is Wage Workers, which is a pretty interesting card. So when you finish taking an action, if you have taken that action exactly 3 times this turn, gain a click. So if the action that you take is gain a credit, so you spend 3 clicks, gain a credit, gain a credit, gain a credit, you can get another click back, which is good. So you can use that last click to gain another credit, or draw a card, or install a card, or do anything that you want. And this works with install, and it doesn't have to be just ice. So you can install an asset, install an upgrade, and install a piece of ice, and you'd still install the card 3 times, so you get another click. Or you can advance a card 3 times. And because you advanced a card 3 times, you can advance a card a 4th time and score it. But if, for whatever reason, you have more than 3 clicks and you take the same action more than 3 times, or you take the same action, 2 different actions 3 times consecutively, we'll say, just weird to think about, makes sense, you can trigger your Wage Workers twice off of your Luminal Transubstantiation in the same turn, because this does not say limit once per turn. Bit of a niche interaction. Again, it's why Luminal was banned, because you essentially, if you have a Wage Workers out, you can get like 2.5 turns of value, almost 3 turns of value, the turn that you score a Luminal, and it's bonkers, just bonkers. But that's legal in Startup, so if you can pull it off, good on you. But yeah, Wage Workers is great. This is a card that you see in Standard all the time too. And for what's worth saying is a lot of these cards we see in Standard all the time. I would argue that Startup is meaner. It can almost be meaner than Standard, because there isn't a ban list, or there is a much more limited ban list, and that they've allowed, or Null Signal is allowing more things in the meta, which I also think is very good. But it is a very different kind of world in the card pool. So again, very fun place to kind of play. But as far as the operations go, we have our hedge funds, which you've seen, gain some money. Seamless Launch, which we've been playing out of Wayland, lets us get advancement counters really quickly. And we can pull it back with Hospira. So if we score out something on a turn we use Seamless Launch, we can pull the Seamless Launch back from archives that same turn, which is really good. And reuse them. And the last card, the last operation, is Greasing the Palm. Click compression and gain us money. It's just good. Click compression is a concept where you take what you would normally do in multiple clicks, like, as I said, clicking for credit is a card, and card draw is a card, or excuse me, clicking for credit is a click, clicking for a card is a click. this combines, and installing is a click. So this is a single click, which nets you 2 credits and lets you install a card. So you are combining multiple clicks worth of value into a single click card, which is really at the core what we want to do. And this is a good way to continue and keep up tempo, which is nice. And if the runner has a tag for whatever reason, maybe they're playing Seb, you can remove it to place an advancement counter on the card you install. So really good, really nice card, really flexible. Last 2 cards to round out our upgrades are Anoetic. This protects your servers. You can put this in a scoring remote, and as long as you have stuff in your hand and a little bit of money, you can force the runner to keep running into or running through the same server. So really nice protective upgrade to help keep your remotes secure, even if you don't have a huge stack of ice or huge tower of ice there to actually be doing that work. You can use these upgrades to force the runner to keep dealing with hopefully your big expensive ice on a remote, and keep something safe when you're trying to score it out. And this card is very much in the same vein, although it costs the runner stuff instead of costing you. Managarm makes the runner spend 2 clicks or pay 5 in order to get into the server, compared to Anoetic, which costs the corp cards and credits to keep the runner out. This costs the runner from getting in. But still a very similar idea where it's keeping our remotes safe for an extra turn, putting more pressure on the runner. This is not cheap. An extra 2 clicks on top of the run, that's 3 out of the 4 clicks that the runner has just to make the run if they don't want to pay 5. And if they do want to pay 5, they still have to pay 3 to trash this thing. So that costs the runner 8 credits essentially. Again, this is just a really strong card. You see this everywhere. Really good. Makes sense to have this in this deck. Ice. Again, a little bit less ice, I think. I actually don't even remember how many ice this one had. This one had about 12, and this one has 11. So just one less piece of ice, but the RHB deck here is focusing more on these defensive upgrades to help augment that ice and, you know, make it a bit beefier. But for our barriers, we have a Blade of Barrier, which is another gear check. It's just a 1 strength barrier that says end the run, which is really good as a gear check ice. But later in the game, once you hit threat, you can install a non-agenda card from HQ or archives in a different server. So this will let us get back our Spin Doctor, for example, that might be in archives. We can use this. I just realized I skipped an asset. We'll get to that in a second. We can use this to get back our Managarm Skunkworks. So if the runner towards the end of the game makes a run on R&D, we res the Ablative, which is, again, a gear check ice and probably not going to actually help us too much at the end of the game as far as stopping the runner. What it does is let us get a defensive upgrade that we can use in the remote and help keep the remote safe to score, hopefully, the next turn with the seamless launch. And this makes it so that we can, and again, it doesn't have to be the remote. We can put Managarm on HQ. In this example, if the Ablative was on HQ, we could put the Managarm on R&D if we want. The point is, it lets us get back some of these assets that cost the runner a lot. The runner already invested a lot of money and time in order to get them off of our board state. This lets us get it back at a time that's the most inconvenient for the runner. And that surprise can't be understated. It's a very powerful effect, and combined with making the runner spend the resources again. So if we make them hit another Managarm Skunkworks in the last turn of the game, or one of the last 2 turns of the game, when they weren't expecting it, and they were just trying to get a cheeky archives run or something to make us pop a Spin Doctor, that can be backbreaking. Can be really backbreaking. So really good effect. I would generally suggest not rezzing these early game if you can avoid it, or as much as you can possibly avoid it, just because that late game effect is very strong. But to talk about some of those ice where the upgrades can help, Braun, this is one of the biggest pieces of ice in the format. We did see some big ones out of Jinteki a second ago too, but Braun is our HB equivalent, which lets us install a card from HQR Archives directly behind this ice, which is cool, ignoring all costs, and then it has 2 end the run. And this is kind of HB's game. This is very indicative of Haas Bioroid. The Jinteki deck that we were just talking about is very indicative of Jinteki, where they want to trap you, they want to try and whittle you down, 1,000 cut style deck, and flatline you and threaten you with that. Haas Bioroid wants to use efficiency and just brute force and just be more efficient than the runner, and has a lot of different ways to like cram efficiency, a lot of efficiency into like a single card slot. So this is an example of that, where it lets us install a card from HQ or Archives, and again, or Archives, getting us back something from our discard pile is really good. And usually that's what you want to prioritize, is trying to get something back. And then the end of the run is great. It does have the Bioroid ability where the runner can spend a click to break a subroutine, but usually a runner isn't going to spend 3 clicks to get through this, and you can't let this first subroutine fire. This is still really impactful. So this is a strong piece of ice. Makes sense why you see 3. But real quick, before I go to the code gates, I want to talk about powers that be. I skipped over this before. When something is scored, the Corp can install a card from HQ or Archives, ignoring all costs. Again, kind of similar effect to Braun, but this takes effect when we're scoring. So this can let us reinstall something from our discard pile, again, getting back a Nico campaign for money, or getting back a federal fundraising to control our deck. It all just depends on what the board state is and what we already have out. But it's a really flexible card, and it's just kind of annoying for the runner to deal with, and costs enough. It's a fair to trash. Yeah, it's a meaningful amount, a noticeable amount. But speaking about a card that you might come revitalize with, that is MIC. Big code game. Has 3 subroutines. The runner loses a click, the runner loses a click, and end the run. So it's kind of like a big enigma, where it costs the runner clicks if they face check into it. But this also has the ability to trash it and force an end the run unless the runner spends a click. This is similar to a card called Border Control, which you might have heard about, where the runner not only is forced to interact with this piece of ice and break it on, let's say they're running the server, of course, they have to interact with and break this ice, but even after they pass it, the corporation can trash it and remove it from the board to end the run. So if the runner doesn't break the 2 lose a click subroutines, then they're not going to have a click when you trash the MIC. So it's kind of a cool effect. You don't see a lot of this in Netrunner, but it can be a really flexible card. And again, combined with like Managarm Skunkworks on a remote, if you have a remote that's like MIC and Braun, and then with a Managarm Skunkworks behind it, that's a really hard server for the runner to get into, because not only do they need to break the MIC, not only do they need to break the Braun, both are very high strength with a lot of subroutines, but then they need to spend the click to trash the MIC, or because we're going to trash the MIC, and then spend 5 more credits and have 2 more clicks, or excuse me, or have 2 more clicks to deal with the Managarm. And this puts a crunch on the runner and pressures their click economy instead of maybe their card draw. It still pressures a click economy, it just pressures it in a different way, which I think is great. Magnet, kind of a meta card, little 3/3 code gate, 3 cost to res, 3 strength, and it has an end the run, but this is like a magnet. This is going to absorb any Trojans that are on the board. So if we're playing against Arasana, or if we're playing against, I don't know, maybe a Anarch with Botulus, or a Criminal with Physarum, Entangler, or something like that, Magnet is going to just absorb them and hold on to all of them and blank the wonderful card text, making the runner furious. And that's delightful. It's a great card slot. So very fun card. Really, really good in the format because, again, Physarum and Botulus you see, I think, quite a bit. Rounding out our Ice Suite, a couple sentries. One is Ancel. Again, a large, beefy piece of ice for HB. Makes sense. Has the HB text. The runner can spend a click to break the subroutines. And it trashes again an installed runner card, which is really great. You may install one card from HQ or archives, thing HB is good at doing, and the runner cannot steal or trash corp cards for the remainder of this run. So they can see, they get some information, but they can't steal or trash, which is a good effect. Honestly, maybe information, maybe they find the, I don't know, punitive Counter-Strike in not this deck, but maybe they find, the punitive Counter-Strike in the deck or something, and they get some information. But this is as good as end the run as you're going to get that doesn't actually end the run. So, pretty good effect. And our last card is a Roto Turret. Little sentry that can blow up a runner program and end the run. Again, just a nice little check if the runner has maybe, again, and this is something that can work in combination with the other cards in your deck. And I know I mentioned earlier why you might not want to res an Ablative Barrier early game, but if you can force the runner to res an Ablative Barrier and then they have to play their Fractor to get through your barrier, then this little Roto Turret, cheeky little Roto Turret, can snipe the Fractor and knock it off the board. And, maybe that's really good against Criminal, probably less good against Shaper, just because Shaper has the recursion to kind of deal with it, whereas Criminal usually doesn't. But, again, it's just a board state thing, and it's always nice to have a sentry that says end the run, which is a good spot. Good spot to be in. So, of these two decks, I guess we should pull up mine as well. Let's view or edit, whatever we've been doing. So very different styles of decks. We have a bit lower agenda count again compared to the Jinteki deck. We have way more ice, and maybe this is something that we should be looking at. Is I don't think we need all of this ice. Maybe if we... Okay. Let's explain what this is doing again, and then we can kind of explain and compare this to some of the other decks and see what we're doing wrong, or maybe doing right. We have a lower agenda count, which is right. Our assets right now are focused... Well, Atlas lets us get a card from our deck, which is good. Slash and Burn lets us... Similarly to Seamless Launch, we can put agenda counters quickly out. It costs us the agenda. So Expend, we reveal and trash it, and it goes away. But it lets us try and get our agendas out quickly. And this would allow us to fast advance our Project Atlas, for example, out of our hand. So we could score the Project Atlas out of our hand in one turn by expending the Slash and Burn Agriculture. And Basalt Spire is a card that lets us get cards back from archives into HQ. Again, quite a bit of flexibility. If this happens, it has an effect if the runner steals it, which is really, really nice because I would love to score this every game, and I have found that the games I score a Basalt Spire, I usually win because it opens up just really strong lines of play. Whether it be expending the Slash and Burn our agricultures a bit more liberally, or letting me get the Seamless Launches back that we talked about. Like, it does a lot of things. So it's just a really good strong, or even getting any of these ice back with the amount of crew that's in the meta. We have Charlotte, which as I said and talked about many times, it's really good for economy, good for our tempo, and comboed with our ID ability, it's just gas. It's just pushing us along constantly, which is really good, both in money and credits and in card draw. Spin Doctor, for all the reasons that we've already talked about, this is a pretty ubiquitous card in any deck. Business as usual. Again, this probably is a cut ability slot. This, man, I don't know, because remove all virus counters from an installed card. I think that's a really strong effect, and there isn't a lot of card effects that let us purge without spending our turn. So just for that reason alone, honestly, I think that second node is worth it alone, and this first node can give us more ability to either score our agendas for fewer credits, or it can power up our ice without having us spend our money and without locking up our real credits into what might be less than ideal, we'll say. It might not be the best, use of a click on paper. But we have, money-wise, we've talked about these before. We have hedge funds to gain some money, and government subsidy to gain a little bit more money. I mentioned before, this actually used to be a Regolith mining license, and then we cut it for the government subsidy, which I think is right, given what we've seen with how this deck does tend to get stressed. Because we advance so many types of cards, we tend to be a bit taxed on clicks, because we can't advance everything and install everything and advance the cards that we want the way we want. So Regolith being more click intensive, even though it gives us more value, more money, it's costing us clicks, and we can't afford those clicks because we're Wayland and we got stuff to do. So we will have a government, we will just, get the government to help us out. Seems fair. Seems like a corpo thing to do. And then the last card for our Operation Seamless Launch. Place 2 advancement counters on a card that you did not install. Again, this is how we're going to score a Basalt Spire without advancing it, is by 2 seamless launches and advancing it, and it's good. And it feels great. Upgrade-wise, Chrysium Grid. Runs against the server cannot be declared successful. This is probably a cut slot as well. I guess this is good against Conduit. I guess it's good against Legwork. Trick Shot. Actually, you know what? Well, isn't that good for Trick Shot? No, it costs Trick Shot 2 credits. So, because Trick Shot's busted. That card's silly. Doesn't need to run. Doesn't need a successful run to do everything. So this is probably a cut slot until I see something that is really worrying me. I think we had a cheeky game last week where we used it to stop a leech, but it worked against us because it gave the Audrey counters. So I think ultimately this was a net negative in our experience, and it hasn't helped me in person either. It's just it can be really good, but I maybe it's just not right in startup right now. Isaac, really good piece of ice. Again, this is kind of our version of a defensive upgrade, even though it isn't a trick or isn't sneaky like Anoetic or Managarm, because the runner knows Isaac is there. Pretty much every time the runner's going to know Isaac is there. So the surprise with Isaac is which pieces of ice are in front of him. His ability is going to help make sure that all of the pieces of ice will have +2 strength, which can be pretty good. But if those pieces of ice are rezzed, then it becomes a known quantity for the runner. Which I guess you could say Managarm and something like that does as well. But Managarm, compared to Isaac, the runner has to get through all of the pieces of ice, and then the corporation can res Anoetic Void or Managarm Skunkworks and force the runner to deal with the effect. You know, spend whatever it is. Whereas Isaac is going to be rezzed already, and the only surprise is going to be whether the ice is rezzed as well. Because then if it's rezzed, again, known information. If it's not rezzed, you're surprising them with what the thing was that was hidden. Very different kind of card here, but I think this is important for the deck. Just because we advance so many things. And 9 barriers. Probably we can rework this. I think, yeah, I think we can rework our ice a bit. Because Ice Wall, Logjam, and Tree Line seems really extra. Ice Wall is just a gear check that can get big. Logjam is really good. I think this is arguably the best piece of ice in the deck, because we're going to be throwing all these things in archives. So I actually really like Logjam. And Tree Line's been pretty good. I've been pleasantly surprised. It doesn't have a lot of subroutines, but it's simple in a like refreshing way. It has the Ice Wall ability, right? So every piece of advancement counter, every advancement counter on this ice makes it higher strength. And it has an extra ability, so the subroutine gains us a credit in addition to end the run. And we can spend a click and a credit to put 3 advancement counters on 1 installed piece of ice. So we can use it to power up our Logjam, make our Logjam bigger. We can use it for our Ice Wall to make our Ice Wall bigger, which is pretty silly when we could have just installed the Logjam to begin with, and it would have essentially done the same thing. A little bit less money. Oh, that's actually a fair point. Maybe I should be tree lining Ice Walls. That's not bad, huh? Because then the tree line, it almost turns the Ice Wall into a tree line. It's not a bad play. We've had this Descent, which I've discovered I actually kind of like. I thought I wasn't going to, because it's a... Words are hard. The first thing is it is a gear check for a code gate. Just when it's an ice, it is a 1 strength code gate that says end the run. However, we can pull it back to our hand if it's rezzed, and we would do that because it lets us cycle our agendas that are in R&D, or excuse me, HQ or archives, and put them back into R&D. So if we have used this slash and burn, for example, we can use Descent to get it back into our deck and make it go away and keep it out of reach for the corporation or for the runner. Or if we just have, somehow we just got a hand spiked full of agendas, we can just discard the Descent to shuffle them back into our deck. And again, it kind of serves the same focus as this Spin Doctor does almost, but in a very Wayland kind of way, which is great. I think this is flexible. I really like these Descents. I don't think I'm going to cut those. Whoredom, you can advance it. If there are 3 or more advancement counters, the runner cannot break subroutines on this ice using AI programs. This is one of the pieces of ice that we would advance more than once and use a tree line, or use a tree line on, because we've been seeing a good amount of AI with Slap Vandal or with Audrey, most notably, and this gets around that and makes the runner have a different answer. Now, there's a lot of cards that aren't AI that still can break subroutines, like Boomerang. No, Boomerang isn't in startup, but Botulus is. And Botulus is, we actually ran into this the other week as well, where Botulus can break any piece of ice. However, the only subtype that it has is Trojan. So it's a bit of a frustration where it doesn't help us with the Whoredom. But in the meta, I think the Whoredom's good. We might not need 2. This might be able to get cut down if we find the spots. And the subroutines are fine. Gain a credit and end the run. So it's basically a tree line. You can look at it. Actually, that's a good way to look at this. It is a code gate version of tree line. Does the same thing. The barrier is a bit more, in the barrier kind of way, it is a bit more straightforward, whereas the code gate version of it is a bit more nuanced and has too much text. It just has a lot of text. It can power up and get stronger, so kind of funny ways to do it. Rounding out, oh wait, did I miss something? Nope, great. And then running this out was Hammer, which let us, again, give the runner a tag, trash an installed resource or a piece of hardware, and trash an installed program that is not decoder, fractor, or killer. It's just a big piece of ice that the runner needs to deal with in a particular way because of, unless they're using a killer, they can only break one subroutine on it. So, pretty good effect here, and we've seen all of these kind of effects in the other decks we've looked at today. And then the Tithe is our last thing, doing net damage and gain a credit. Again, probably a card that we can cut. I think I just put Tithe in because otherwise our ice is silly expensive to res on average, and the curve for this isn't right. So looks wise, just raw looking at deck composition and deck construction, what our deck doesn't have that these other decks do is alternate win conditions in the case of Jinteki, and or defensive upgrades to allow us to score out in the case of the Wayland deck, or excuse me, the Haas Bioroid deck here. The issue is that Wayland in the meta doesn't really have any upgrades that are defensive in the same way. So we have Angelique, which does damage like we talked about. We have Crisium Grid, which is in the deck and isn't it? Isaac, which, as I talked about, is a defensive upgrade, but in a very different way. Malapert, which gets us a card, and Tucana, which lets us search our deck and get a piece of ice again, which actually could be worth putting in the deck. That probably would be worth it over Crisium, because we can stick this in a remote, and we can stick Tucana in a remote with Charlotte and just leave her there and then advance something out. And maybe the Tucana is worth playing, but it kind of plays into just making an ice server, and that can get really expensive for what we have going on here. So the problem becomes an influence game where we're going to have to import, like if we want the Anoetic has 4 influence each, so I don't think we're going to be able to get to that point. Hokusai doesn't really help us here. Adrian is again 4 influence, so I don't think that's going to be it. And really the Managarm is reasonable, but it's at 3 influence, so it's going to cost us some stuff if we want to try and get that in. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're just going to talk about some of the same things and different things before we go trying to make a bunch of broad sweeping changes. Oh wow, I've just been going on for quite some time. That's great. Okay. If anyone has any questions, by the way, let me know. I'm happy to explain things more. I'm trying to go into detail on why I have included this, or why I will include cards, or as best we can. But if you have any questions or something doesn't make sense, or I talk too fast, just let me know, and I'm happy to go back and kind of explain everything that we're doing, or what I'm seeing as far as the differences in decks. And I think numbers wise we might be a little off, so if we can fix our upgrades a little bit and get some other defensive upgrade here, then it starts to line up with these, but I don't think we need to worry about the numbers Exactly. The thing is I think the big difference is this. We are taking all of these card slots that we're gaining from not having a lot of agendas and not being really an asset spam deck. So these two are really low, and we're just putting all of that into ice and trying to use that to dissuade the runner from actually making runs. And I think you could look at this in a way that, yeah, on paper we have 16 pieces of ice, but 5 of them have expendable text. So Descent and Treeline, right, also do have abilities that would be more in line with like an Operation. So maybe the numbers are a bit different if we want to, like Galaxy Brain how this actually looks like. But I think the reality is that it's just not getting us to where we want to be. And finding a way to give us a bit more of a defensive boost, I think would be the way to go. Because we have a lot of draw. I mean, we have a good amount of draw. I could actually see us trying to find more draw and maybe replace this ice with something that doesn't just end the run or that pushes our game forward a bit more. Because if you look at this Jinteki deck, for example, is the ice all feeds in to what the deck is trying to do in one way or another. And a lot of it is net damage. So like the Boto does net damage, the Atini, the Cloud Eater, the Phonatria, all of these things do net damage, which is good. 2, 8, 12. But they aren't. But yeah, it pushes it forward in a direction the deck wants. Everything that we have, for the most part, ends the run. Or turns on our other pieces of ice. Which I don't think is impactful enough. Because the runner can just pressure us. Like, with these barriers being the bulk of what we get, these just say end the run. And don't really have other meaningful text. Gaining us money isn't really meaningful text. When all of our other cards gain us a lot of money. So we could argue that this is the Wayland way, but I think finding some more impactful ice, maybe redesigning this a bit more would be a good idea. And reworking this to include, I would love to get a Mana Garm, like 2 Mana Garm, I don't think we can squeeze 6 influence out of this. It's basically like cutting some combination of Seamless Launch and Charlotte. We can probably get away with cutting a Spin Doctor out of this deck too, because we do have the Descent. If we can find other ways to give us card draw. Because that's the other thing Spin Doctor does, is give us card draw. Albeit Descent does cost us some money. So that's the other way to look at it. But yeah, I think the big difference here that we're seeing is that our deck is too honest, in fact. Not just honest, but we're like so honest that we're sitting down, shaking our runner's hand and telling them where the agendas are going to be and how they need to actually get in. Whereas this Personal Evolution deck is putting a wonderful buffet of food and then telling you after you've eaten it that 3/4 were poisoned and they don't remember which one. And, the HB where you're just, stuck compared to HB where you might be like, you're just sitting there and like trying to make a buck, put a $1 into a coin machine, and then there's a robot who's just like spitting out everything and bean counting better than you could imagine with 5 supercomputers. So they're both taking advantage of some really strong cards, whereas we're trying to take advantage of some neat tricks, I guess I would call, like the slash and burn stuff and this kind of fast advanced stuff. So really, really good to kind of look at and analyze quite a bit. I think that's actually really helpful for me, just to actually take a good look. I don't think I've ever done a meaningful comparison between the two decks, or between decks like this. So this has actually been really, really eye-opening for me, just even on the Corp side. I think that's really, really good. And like this, we'll go back to this HB deck too, which is a bit more comparable. It has similar amount of ice, and actually its Agenda Suite is pretty similar as well. Although they're playing 3 4/2s, which again is probably something we might want to consider a bit, because our 4/2s actually are a good part of our game plan. Because the Slash and Burns let us expand, or we can expend the Slash and Burns to score out either of these Atlases and Above the Laws. So we can probably rework that. So comparing it more to this one, because obviously we don't have a net damage suite, right? We don't have a damage suite out of Wayland like Jinteki does, so we can't focus on that. And we don't have the efficiency that HB does, but we're closer in identity to, in what we're playing, in like Unity, I suppose, to HB compared to Jinteki. And HB is doing this with 11 pieces of ice and 3 really impactful upgrades. What we are trying to do with 17 pieces of ice, and I'll call it 3 impactful upgrades, but really this is 1, because we can't have multiple of these. We can't have 2 Isaacs up. So once we have the 1, we're set. I mean, you can't have 2 Managarms either, but this deck has 2 Managarms. Granted, the one thing I didn't bring up about Precision Design is it does have a 40-card deck limit. Oh wait, don't we? Don't we have a 40-card deck limit? We have a 40-card deck limit. What are we doing? Oh man, we're really goofing our numbers. Yeah. So we can definitely cut an Isaac. I cannot say that our Isaac is as important as Managarm. I just can't. So then why would we play 3 of them? I'm just gonna do this. I'm involved. I'm in it. We're doing it. We're cutting an Isaac. We're cutting a Chrysium. We're gonna figure out what the deal with our ice is. We're doing 3 Slash and Burn and 2 Atlas. I just did a bunch of stuff. Let me explain what I'm doing. The Chrysium we talked about hasn't really been impactful in my playing, so we're just gonna cut that for now. Maybe this can come back later. The Isaac is oh, where are we? Okay, there we go. Like we just said, Isaac is not as impactful as Managarm. We want to find another defensive upgrade for sure. We do not need 3 Isaacs. We can get them back with Spin Doctors too. We don't need 3. So let's just get rid of it for now. We can circle back around to all of these things. I added the 3rd Atlas, or excuse me, the 3rd Slash and Burn, because the Slash and Burn is going to let us score our Project Atlas and Above the Law from hand, which I think is really important. As long as we can protect our archives. So I don't think our end goal is going to be to get to 11 ice, because we want to have more ice, and we do want to, at minimum, protect our archives a little bit. And we want to protect our archives a little bit because of our log jams and our Slash and Burn, and because we ultimately, at the end of the day, want the runner to spend resources running archives. That is, we want to make that be in play. And maybe that's something that I have not been doing enough when I've been piloting this, is I've been playing archives like every other faction, like I have every other faction, whereas it's a place where the old things go. And out of Wayland, that might be a place that I can put things and make the runner deal with them. which is fun and gives another pressure point for the runner to deal with, or for the runner to have to deal with it. Because if we are throwing agendas in archives and the runner knows it, they need to find a way, like they need to do it. They need to do something about it. They can't just ignore the points that are in archives and act like everything's fine. So I think we're gonna try this for a little bit. We're gonna keep going down this rabbit hole here. Whoredom. I think we can cut a Whoredom. I'm tempted to go up a Descent, honestly. Two Ice Wall? I might go down to 1 Ice Wall? 3 tree lines seems like a lot. Let's do 2 tree lines, 2 Ice Walls. So we just cut 2 of that. So what do we got? 13. So we just cut 3 pieces of ice. Keeping the hammer and the tithe. Overall, I think we've raised, because we cut a Whoredom and a tree line, so we cut 2 4-cost pieces of ice, and we cut a 1-cost piece of ice. So I guess we did lower the average cost, addition by subtraction, right? Yeah, I think that's right. However, we have not given ourselves any influence, which is a problem. Unless we have a different way. Now, what Wayland does have, and I've been talking about this throughout this video, is utilizing the strengths that your corporation has. And Wayland does have a card called Punitive Counterstrike. 3, trace 5, if successful, do X meat damage. X is equal to the sum of the printed agenda points on all agendas the runner stole during their last turn. We haven't talked a lot about trace, but basically how it works is it's a money game. So the corporation, it starts at the trace printed, so it starts at trace 5. The corporation can pay more money on top of that to increase the strength. Then the runner can pay money to attempt to meet or exceed the corporation's total. If the runner does meet or exceed the corporation's link strength, the trace is unsuccessful. And it just depends on what happens. In this case, if the corporation can pay more money than the runner, they're going to do damage. And we could try and set this up. It's just tricky, right? Because we're not playing a deck that cares about damage at all. So in order for us to guarantee a punitive counterstrike kill, we either need to give the runner 3, 5 to, we either need to have 2 punitive counterstrikes in hand and give them a 3-pointer, or two pointers or something, and have more money, way more money than them, or we need to feed them 6 points of agendas and beat them on a trace. It doesn't seem like it's what this deck is built for. If I wanted, I don't even know if I could rework it to get there, to get to be where we want a punitive deck to be. So we're gonna put a pin in it. We're not gonna go this direction for now, although this is something that Wayland is very into. I think our answer might really be to import some good stuff from, honestly, I would love a Mana Garm. If we can get a Mana Garm in this deck, that's gonna be really, really, really strong. Pivot gets us a card, an operation or agenda, and reveal it. Okay, so this wouldn't, so that would get us like a punitive if we want it, but that wouldn't get us like a one-of Mana Garm if we wanted. Honestly, even a one-of Mana Garm, that might be tough. That might be tough. Armed Asset Protection I don't think is going to be it either. We're in Operation Land. Let's go through our upgrades. There's no neutral upgrades. We've talked about the Wayland ones. Tucana's not bad. That does help our ice stack. Tucana might be something, if I'm being honest. It telegraphs, so then, okay, so Tucana would let us, you know, get something into R&D. I think we're focusing a bit too much on this. I honestly think the real answer is going to be cut a seamless. I'm just going to get weird. Let's cut a seamless, cut a spin. Let's get this Mana Garment. Let's find a way to do it. I'm just going to make moves because I want to try this deck now. We've gone through and we talked about it. Let's make moves and get a Mana Garment here. I would love to find a way to see that faster. We could probably add GovSub to... Is there anything that lets us get... I don't think there's anything that gives us a way to find this. So we're just going to have to dig for it. But that's fine. We tend to draw. What do we need? Lost in the Sauce. We need 6 cards. Let's see if we got some operations that we want. Retribution, Subliminal Messaging, force them to run. Sure, we can throw Subliminal Messaging in here. Gain 3, gain 1 for each card type face up. For each card type among face up card and archive, if any of those are agendas, gain another 2. And it costs us 2. So 1, 2. This seems like a pain in the butt. I don't think this is worth it. Gain 3, gain 1 for each card type among face up cards and archives. So this isn't even in our archives when we play it yet, because it's in the play area. So if we just have an operation, this costs us 2 and gains us 4, so nets us 2. Oh god, this is only good if we have all of our slash, or if we have a slash and burn in archives, and I don't want to put a card in the deck that requires us to have a slash and burn in archives. I will put in the Third Descent, so we'll go back up. I do think we're going to Tucana after all. We'll put 2 Tucana. With a Third Descent, this Tucana also can get us a Descent back, which might be able to be used out of turn as well. And have we done anything else that's kind of... Let's see if we can find any assets that make it worthwhile. Clearinghouse. Oh, Clearinghouse is interesting. This is kind of Wayland's version of a trap. But I think in order for us to do this... Okay, so let's talk it through. In order to guarantee a kill, we need to put 6 advancement counters on this. And that's a long time. And if we are seamless launching, or if we're doing something, it's at some point it's gonna telegraph itself to the runner. But this could be a card where it gets us kills. I don't know. I don't think this is gonna be... I don't think this is a solution for this deck either. I don't think that's quite it. And maybe the solution is going to end up being cutting all these seamless and embracing the slow way our deck behaves. Hearts and Minds, when you begin moving an advancement counter for an installed card to an installed card you can advance. If the server is not protected by ice, you may also place an advancement counter. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We might have just found our answer. We have 2 card slots. Let's do a rework. Let's try and get 2 Hearts and Minds. 1 Clearinghouse? 2 Clearinghouse? 2 Hearts and Minds? Do we just commit to this? Let's try this. You know, let's see where we end up here. 47 cards, so we have to cut 3. I think we're gonna get rid of this Tucana plan because we're getting weird. Oh, and just cutting the Tucana plan got us most of the way there. Let's get rid of the seamless launch or the subliminal because we don't want them to be running. So does this let us, when your turn begins, you may move one advancement counter from an installed card to an installed card you can advance if this server is not protected by ice. You may also place an advancement counter on an installed card you can advance. So this is how we can advance all of our ice nonsense and a clearinghouse in a server. Because when our turn begins, we get to choose the order of our triggers. So if we have, let's talk through 2 Hearts and Minds, or one, whatever. 2 Hearts and Minds are on the board. Neither are protected because we're going to let the runner do their runner thing. Or at least, yeah, whatever. When your turn begins, you may move 1 advancement counter from an installed card to an installed card you can advance. Okay. Clearinghouse will be an installed card we can advance on the board. In this example, our ice are also an installed card that will have advancement counters. Great. So far, so good. If this server is not protected by ice, you may also place 1 advancement counter on an installed card you can advance. So that doesn't have to be the same card, but in this case, it lets us get 2 counters on a card at the start of a turn. Moves 1 and adds 1, which is sweet. Because then if we have installed and advanced a clearinghouse, 1 Hearts and Minds gets us 3 counters on clearinghouse. Unexpectedly and fast. If we have 2 Hearts and Minds somehow, we can go from 1 advancement counter to 5 advancement counters. In an ideal situation. I think if we are allowed to do that, I think the runner is seriously goofed. But I think this is actually really interesting. It also would let us combo stuff with Charlotte. I really kind of like this. We're going to try this. Rush the wall. Yeah. And I don't think these numbers are necessarily right. Let's give this some go. I feel like I've been talking for, oh god, way too long. Let's give this some goes. And there we go. Hopefully we can get ourselves a game. I need to get that on a clipboard. So, do this, Corp startup, go. And we're gonna get our card going here. So this is actually kind of cool. I definitely think this is a very different version of the deck. I did not anticipate this going this way, so I'm excited to see how it goes. But this has been a really interesting dive so far. And I do want to, again, shout out, we went through Grendel X's Personal Evolution deck, and JD Bartry's Hospbioroid Precision Design deck. So thank you very much for the looks. Great decks, by the way. Okay, so GovSub, this isn't going to get us where we want, and it's Tau, so they're going to mess with our board state. Not having any money isn't good, so I think we need to mulligan here. Great. Much better. Much better. We want to keep the clearinghouse. I think we're just going to start by icing up. I think we're less worried about HQ than R&D, even though Tau is going to mess our world up. And again, Tau is the ID that when an agenda is scored or stolen, they can swap ice. I think we'll just res the logjam. That's fine. So this cost us some counters because there's not really anything in archives, but we're going to be able to hedge fund again right out of it. So this really isn't hurting us tempo-wise. Hearts and Minds, cool. So let's draw, hedge, and install Hearts and Minds, and this is going to be good to see what the runner's going to do. If they're going to be checking our remotes, whatever, you know. I don't think we res Hearts and Minds because the only thing it does is let's... Ooh, just jailbreaking. Just jailbreaking. Yeah, I'm gonna res. We have this Atlas. We want to protect our Atlas. I love that. Already, the Descent making a big deal. The third Descent. I was not big on that card when I first made the deck, and when that first card, when Descent first came out. Oh, after they've used the jailbreak. Ah. Dang. Dang. What luck. What luck. Do we want to pull this back? No. Alright, okay, so the Ice Wall we can stick over R&D. I think that's probably where we're going to go. Let's draw. And draw. And install the Ice Wall over R&D. We just need Tau to get out of our business for a minute. The Ice Wall could also be over Archive. I just don't want to leave an unprotected R&D. Tau can already mess our stuff up just by being him. So really this is smartware. Okay, so they're setting up. They did a bit of a setup turn. And again, I don't think moving these counters are good, so I don't think the Hearts and Minds is very good. Do I want to have the Descent back? No. GovSub. GovSub. Okay. So where are we going to do this? They have 4 credits. We really would like a piece of ice. So I think we will advance that. We will install the Isaac and start having Isaac bounce back and forth. And I think we're going to gain a credit. Do we res the Isaac? Oh, that has no advancement counters. No, I don't think we do res the Isaac. I think we leave it for now. We don't need to telegraph it's Isaac. For now, they can wonder if it's Chrysium. We advanced the Ice Wall, so we lost a bit of value. Hermes, yep, this makes sense. I think we saw a version of this deck last week as well. I still don't think we want to pull the Descent back. Great. Okay. This is a good spot. I think we don't want to necessarily broadcast. No, I think we do. Because we don't want to have to res. So let's just gain credits and install the Tithe. Technically, we could have gov-subbed here, government subsidy to gain money, but I would rather have the runner think we're a little bit poorer than we are, even if we have to click for a credit next turn. First, I'm just imagining them running this Ice Wall. Oh, Aesops, okay. Okay. Test Run is cool. This is not a card you see very often right now. Maybe it's just because this is startup, but this is cool. They're probably going to get their Barrier Breaker. Oh. Oh, that makes sense. Cool. Very cool. So, thing about Test Run is whatever you get back, it goes back on top of your stack, but you don't have to pay for the card you install. So, they installed that for free. And are going to get it back and pawn it later. Salt Spire still. We probably want to pull this Descent back at this point, if I'm being honest. Although they haven't done anything with our remote. So let's just stick the Clearinghouse out. Let's see what they do. Let's GovSub, get some money, and let's just advance this and see what happens. Just for fun. This is a bit greedy. But I also think forcing them to pay some money is fine. Even though the Coalescence is going to get them back in. But we got to make them use money somehow. I really wish I had ice, truthfully. Which... Now I wish I had the clearinghouse back. Would have been better. At least I could have bothered him with this. Because these two cards would have messed him up. Okay. We're getting somewhere again, I think. Let's install the tree line in a new remote, and let's install the Managarm behind the tree line. Next turn. Man, I don't know if we want to push another Coalescence. Okay, so they're just crushing. They're cruising money at this point. Mandatory draw. Logjam. Okay. All right. Do we have a way to score this? If we install Advance, we would need to... Oh, I guess that would work with the Hearts and Minds, because then we can just transfer stuff over, huh? Okay, let's play. Let's install server 3. Let's advance. Let's business as usual to place an advancement counter on this and on this. And let's... Oh, wait. Oh, we shouldn't have done that. Hold on. We're going to undo something slightly because we're going to play smart. We're playing smart. So we're going to do the Logjam and the Ice Wall. And now we're going to res the Isaac, end turn, bounce the Isaac to server 3. And because the tree line doesn't have an advancement counter, we'll put the advancement counter there. Let's play smart. Maximize our value. And this is good, because we're actually threatening to score the Basalt trick shot. Am I missing something? No, they just don't have a Fractor. Super aggressive. I love it. I, for one, love it. You know, I was dumping on the barriers before we began, or when we did the deck building. And I am finding, just one sell card move, so we'll move it from here to here. And then we'll put an advancement counter on there. We draw that. And now we will advance, and score. Get our Salt Spire up. And they're going to bounce something because of their Hermes. They're going to Tau. They're going to do a bunch of stuff. And make us very upset. Oh. Oh. Well, friends, upset they did not make me. We're just going to install good old barrier in front of R&D. We'll move Isaac over there. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now we're cooking. Because we can res the Logjam. And Logjam, we have 1, 2 things over there. Muse, Coalescence. Alright, so they're continuing the money dance. Which is fine. Mandatory draw. Oh, I can just place an advancement counter on something? I don't want to do that. Let's make the tree line bigger. Above the law. Fire. Love that. So let's install that in server 3. let's... I want to advance it. I'll advance it. And let's install... Do we want to install other Hearts and Minds somewhere? This card's pretty good. That card's pretty good. Do we advance again? Let's just gain credit. And let's move Isaac to server 3. So we're sacrificing a smaller logjam here for a huge tree line. And this could be extra because we do... Oh, well, I take it back. Probably should have left it over there. We res this. We res the logjam. Spin. Hearts and Minds. Rude. They're giving it to us. Okay. Not mad about that. Let's advance, and score. And let's pop the pawn shop. Because an empty smartware makes no sense. Does not help anybody. Then we get messed up a bit. Tau does Tau things. Bounces our Managarm. I think that's okay. We're going to bring the Isaac over there. Do we just install the Managarm again? Just install the Managarm again. That's fine. Let's put that over R&D. Oh, of course they Tau'd us. Swap the Ice Wall, so now it's just gonna be like 2 credits. Oh, this is gonna be a problem. This is gonna be a problem. Because now they're getting efficiency. And they're gonna bounce this again. Well, hopefully they don't hit another one. Okay. They still don't know what this is, which is nice. We still don't have money, which is not nice. And they don't have stuff anymore. Can we make this prohibitively expensive? We could install advance install. That's okay. So let's server 3 will advance Charlotte, and because of our shenanigans, let's advance this, and we'll crack this ice wall. This is not helpful. Does Descent just give us agendas? What's this do? 2 agendas. Okay. Burner. That's fine. We have nothing in here for him. Descent, Tithe, and Descent. Okay. Don't they know one of these? I don't think this is as positive for them as it could be. Wait, -1 strength. Oh, I am bad at math. I am bad at math. This does not. Nice. Nice, G. This was actually a really good game. I'm not mad about this at all. I really liked the Hearts and Minds that we added. I think the Hearts and Minds encourages us to use the business as usual a bit more. It gives us more fuel. We can rearrange our stuff. I probably should have actually installed the Hearts and Minds again, because we needed to since Tau was rearranging all of our ice in this game, we needed to make it so that they were still costing us something. Like, the leech made it so the ice wall was really negligible. Like, we didn't have enough counters on the ice wall to make the runner pay for anything. And we also started losing the ice game. We just didn't have anything. I suppose the Tithe we should have reinstalled on R&D because I didn't have the Sentry Breaker. But again, that's just something they can run through. But it costs them something. Yeah, I think we needed to reevaluate there. The Hearts and Minds was really, really good, however. So I'm actually vibing with this. I want to give this another go because that seemed to feel good. What did we have? Do we have anything else coming up? Hedge Fund, we had, what, 1, 2, 3 left in the deck out of 21. 5 came out in the first 20, so maybe we were a little bit unlucky. But that's fine. I'm not mad. I would have liked to see a Charlotte. Actually, I would have liked to see more ice. This felt like it wanted another remote server. And maybe the Tithe, yeah, you know what? Maybe the Tithe is just not enough. I mean, I had no money. I only had the money for a Tithe here anyway, so we could have popped the Charlotte and done some work next turn, but it was definitely not going to get us where we needed to at that point. The acceleration that Tau had here to get the Muse and the DZMZs, and they could install the Coalescence and essentially use it to gain 7, is really good. So that's the combo, right? So, wow, they're bouncing the 1 Coalescence. So Coalescence costs 2, and it has 2 counters that each get you 2 back. So there's that. Whoop, oh boy, hit a wrong button. But then the DZMZ reduces the cost, so making it free because our opponent had 2, so the Coalescence was free. And then with the Aesops, they can trash the empty Coalescence for 3 more credits. And if it's on the Muse, they can trash the empty Muse for 3 on top of that. So it was just like a pyramid scheme that they had going on of programs. Pyramid scheme for programs. Pretty good. Pretty good. How much time do we got? 152. I got time for one more. Let's see. I kind of want to try that again. Let's see if we can do this. Corpse side, try this again. Oh. Hey there. Another Tau deck. That's gonna be rough for us. But I suppose this is what we get. We're gonna mulligan. 2 agendas is rough. Alright. Much better. Much better for us. Again, this is Tau. So I think doing a similar... Oh, but now we have the Charlotte too. So we probably do want to rush. I do want to push behind this Charlotte. I do. Let's push this. New remote, server 1, and advance. Jailbreaking HQ here wouldn't be good. I don't love the above the law that we've left. But I think... Oh, wow. Wow. We should have installed the above the law. That's cool. Blowing up a full Earthrise would have been so sweet. so sweet. What a bummer. Okay, that's fine. We will do other things. We can just go sideways. We can go sideways in a way that I did not expect us to with this deck. I want the above the law. I really want the above the law. Let's... New remote. Let's... Can I do that? I can do that. I can do so much nonsense with Hearts and Minds. Or do we just business as usual? No, let's... New remote. Actually, no. No. We advance to Charlotte. That'll be quick. We'll advance to Charlotte again. That's what we want. That's more important. Hearts and Minds is a cheeky way to get the advancement counter on the Charlotte that costs us money. I think we just be smart. Do it the old way. The old way, the normal way. Spend your money and your time. Worth noting, we could have considered business as usual to put a counter on the Charlotte and the above the law. I just don't think that's what we want. Fermenter. Okay, so they're getting set up. We are gonna blow up this Earthrise. Oh crap! I hope. Yes. Yes, we will definitely. So they could have bounced, in theory, this above the law. Do we actually Charlotte? I don't think we Charlotte. No. I think we advance, score. Get rid of the Earthrise. Make them pick here, right? So most likely they're going to pop the Descent. This is kind of why I didn't want to use the Charlotte this turn. One, it would have made us discard this round, which doesn't matter. I think we could have discarded something. But this is also going to make it so they probably want to run Charlotte. And I think they're trying to figure out how to do this, or what they want to do. Because they can swap these two and then bounce, or they can just not swap them and bounce one. But either way, I think we're forcing them to reveal Charlotte and run after her, because if they just give us a Charlotte for free at this point of the game and don't pressure her, we're going to keep gaining money, we're going to keep gaining cards. And at least if they pressure her, we get rid of her off the board, and that is much, much better than just let her keep rolling. For them, I think, genuinely for them. I'm not sure what our opponent's working out here. Maybe they're trying to figure it out. Test. Okay. We have connection. That's good. Do our opponent step away? Well, either way, I think this is the decision that they're making here, that they have to figure out here, whether they want to swap or bounce, or what they want to bounce. But I think the thing we're going to see is that Charlotte is not going to be... Charlotte's going to be pressured. Oh, they might be having some problems. Or did they just leave? Aros? This does look like it's almost the same deck, or very similar to what we were just playing. But these are all great cards too. Hermes is great. Telework is good. Fermenter's good money. I'm going to give our opponent a minute and see if they come back. See if anything's going on over here. No, don't think so. Oh, that's a bummer. I think our opponent just dipped out. Oh, no. Aha! Success. All right. They got busy, had to go. I appreciate the return. Thanks, Rose. Honestly, I think that was very kind. So, thank you. I think we're doing okay here. This isn't ideal. We have points. They're going to mess with their board state a little bit, but... sorry. Let's see what we had coming up. Whoa. Woof. Okay. So maybe not. Rose got really... We got fortunate that they whiffed on this trick shot that they played earlier in the game, because that could have been very different. They could have gone up and nailed 5, hit us with 5 really easy, and then we would have just been in the hole for a long time. Well, I guess Natalis would have been coming up, but we would be forced to draw. And this is one of the problems, I think, that this deck does have, and, well, that I've noticed. I don't know if it's a problem, but I feel like there's been times where I want an agenda and I don't see it. And I don't always have enough oomph to get where I need to be. So that might be something worth looking into. But honestly, these changes were really significant. I'm super stoked. I'm going to bring this to the event. We have a local event again this week in LA. So I will be playing that this week with these new adjustments and give it a go. I'm super stoked that we did this. I am going to be back on Friday, this Friday, 2 p.m. We'll go through and we'll do the runner side. I think this was actually really helpful, much more helpful than I anticipated, and I hope for myself, and I hope it was helpful for you too. I hope you've learned some stuff and at least have a good way on how to look at your decks and like what you're trying to build and the reason that you have cards in there. So hopefully that you found some information here beneficial, and I can't wait to do it all again on Friday with the runner side. So super stoked for that. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.